GD. I have videos at various times about Angular related content. I haven't done one in a little bit because I've been doing a lot of AI content, but there's been a lot going on, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to kind of give both an update of some of the stuff that I think is interesting and people should be aware of, but then also I still think it goes on constantly. I hear with companies I'm advising, other startups, other companies that are working on different projects, what they should use, and there are a lot of good options out there. I'm not going to talk about the other options per se, but I do want to just put the pitch in so that people have the good information about the reasons why Angular is so great, and I think is underrated at this point, even though it's kind of been around for so long. So, 5 reasons. Starting off with number one, the biggest one that has been a constant forever is that it's an all-in-one framework, and this has been a constant even going back to the AngularJS days. So it's not, there was that big shift from AngularJS to Angular, which was a complete rewrite where a lot of things changed, but the one constant that stayed the same was this sort of philosophy that this framework is trying to be all in one. It's to have everything that you need to build a modern web app at whatever time there is. And I think that is for sure still true today. And one kind of litmus test you can use for that is that when you want to build an app in Angular, a lot of times if you just do the default CLI scaffolding for a basic Angular app, a lot of times you don't have to actually install any other dependencies, just the basic dependencies for that Angular comes with, all the Angular libraries and a couple other ones like Zone.js and whatever that come as the default, is what you need. You don't need anything else. And I think that is a super strength because it speaks to the fact that Angular has been always focused on giving you the tools that you need to get the job done. And there is benefits to that over. I said I wasn't going to talk about another framework, but I will mention, React has a lot of good strengths, but React has always been kind of like the minimalist or more minimal of a framework, and kind of, and there's strengths to that too, don't get me wrong. But just the reality is that when you are building a, larger React app, especially, you're using a lot of different dependencies, and other than React. And if you look at different people's React projects, they're going to be different because of that, because the core framework itself tries to, it's a feature of that. So again, advantages, disadvantages, the different ones. In certain situations, one is better than the other. In the situation where you want just one framework to give you all you need, Angular is by far the best thing you can do. And I was even looking at, I have a lot of different size Angular applications. And the ones that I've been building recently, the only dependencies other than Angular that I have, it was kind of, even for ones that are pretty large applications, um, for me were like open props, which is like a CSS library that is just, I chose that I wanted to do something slightly different out of the standard. You actually don't need to do that. You could just use the standard CSS styling stuff. So that's something I chose to do. And the only other one was JS SIP, which is something for my application that I need to do telephony calls and that type of thing. So there's like kind of specific use cases for me. Everything else, forms, state, everything else can be handled by what is already there in Angular. Okay, that was reason number one. Number two is stability. And okay, so this is one of the ones that wasn't necessarily always the case. There was, especially in the transition from AngularJS to Angular, that was like a huge amount of change and caused a lot of issues. But pretty much ever since then, things have been amazingly stable as the team has continued to add a number of amazing innovations to the framework. So they have it built in that I can't even remember the time, to be honest, that I did an upgrade of one major version to another that I had to spend more than a trivial amount of time making any changes. They usually have like migration scripts that make changes to anything that gets deprecated. They if there's something that is like a breaking change, they give up plenty of time of it being deprecated, where you have a chance to modify things. So it has been, like, in my opinion, extremely stable, and has allowed people, except in maybe larger enterprises that have very strict um, processes for moving up uh, versions, most people are able to stay on the latest version without any issues. So that's been a huge plus. And they come out on regular. In fact, some people have actually complained to Angular that they come out with releases too often. It's like twice, major versions are twice a year, like on the regular, you know, uh, for the most part, as far as I can remember, always stable. And some people have argued like they should come out with less major changes. But no, I think that, in my opinion, they're on the right frequency now. It works amazingly well. So that's number two. Number three is that they have been able to achieve pretty much parity with the other web frameworks out there. There was a time, even after the move to Angular 2 nearly a decade ago, that there was not that parity, especially when it came to things like server-side rendering, for example. Even though, like, I helped to create the initial server-side rendering library for the initial version of modern Angular, it was missing features that were there with React and other frameworks. But now they've done an amazing job, especially over the past couple of years, of adding like incremental hydration, deferred loading, like all this different stuff where it's just as good and just as much parity, if not better in some cases, arguably. I mean, they're close enough, basically, that there's parity for sure. So I don't think you can say, in the past you probably could say like, oh, I want to use framework X, Y, or Z because it has this feature. And now the way I look at it is that everything has the same stuff. So it's more a matter of it's not a matter of choosing something because of a particular feature. It's more other reasons. All right. Number four is that, okay, it's one thing fixing things or adding things that weren't there to achieve parity. But number four is that they've been leading the way in innovation in certain areas. And there's a couple things where this has been the case, but I'll just point out the way that signals have been popularized. So Angular was definitely not the first framework to implement signals. Definitely not. But I believe that they have been a big part of popularizing it among the different web frameworks, and it's a great abstraction for reactivity within state management in a front end web application. It works, in my opinion, really well, and they spend a lot of time researching what has been done out there. There were other frameworks that were sort of the very leaders in implementing it. But I think, at least the way that I view it, is that Angular has mainstreamed the use of something like signals. And so like they were very much in the position of helping collaborate and bring together a lot of the different frameworks and different ways of doing things to innovate a little bit. I mean, maybe not be the original creator, but I still consider it, innovating and helping to push the web forward. So I think that has been amazing. And number five is somewhat related to that, but just is a more general thing of how much the Angular framework and the Angular team has embraced AI. And I, no doubt, some of this is because of, I'm sure, dictates from above at Google that have uh, wanted every aspect of the organization to do that for their own kind of larger enterprise organizational purposes. But it has been worked out really well in my opinion. And actually, to be honest, I haven't kept up with what some of the other frameworks have been doing for this. I just know that this has been a huge focus of the Angular team recently, and they've already done a number of great things, and there's a bunch of stuff in the pipeline. So some of the stuff, for example, is that they've made a big deal out of the documentation site, the angular.dev, to be LLM friendly, to be able to easily um, capture information. And they have some like sample context files you can use. So like, oh, that stuff is like kind of like nice things, so that when you are building Angular apps with LLMs, that you can very easily get the latest information. They make sure that the context is there, and that the LLMs are trained on their data very easily, which helps to essentially generate uh, Angular apps that are more accurate, less bugs, and fix Angular stuff. So like it's more consistent, etc. And even stuff like there was a issue with, at one point, the LM generation was, because it was trained on some older Angular code. At one point, it was doing like an older syntax for ngIf instead of the new at if syntax, which is just like a feature change at one point within Angular, but the LMs were clearly trained in the old way of doing things. And the Angular team made a bunch of changes to ensure that that was the case, that was addressed. And then they just have a bunch of other stuff that they're looking at now to both make it easier to build Angular apps with AI, and have better integrations from Angular apps to backend AI related systems. So I think there's just a lot going on there, that they are, it's front of mind, like for sure, top priority. And because it's a lot of AI is a lot, the top priority at a lot of, for a lot of us as well, I think it aligns like really well. So that's my top 5. I appreciate you listening to my short Tech Time update on Angular. Again, I haven't done one of these Angular updates in a while, and I know this is like kind of a higher level quick talk, but I will. I think for this one, for each of these like kind of high level ones, I think about wanting to do some um, specific code that I'm going to share in the future. And I think for this one, it might be nice to demonstrate, especially for like that last thing I mentioned, like some of these different AI features. Like it might be pretty nice to do like a more detailed edited video of like demonstrating some of those capabilities. So I'll put that on the list for one of the next couple weeks to do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time on Tech Time Today.